direction, now we're swinging from the tops of the trees. We are animals. We are wild. And to truly be forgiven, we must all get back to living with the land in harmony. I'm going back to the earth. I'm going back to the earth. I'm going back to work. I'm going back to the earth. Back to the earth. I'm going back. I'm going back to work. I'm going back to two more times around. Back to the earth. Yeah. Back to work. One more time around the world. Here it comes. People ask me what my secret is, I just smile and say, follow me. I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world. Life's too short not to really live. I got a big heart, I can let you in. I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world. On top of the world. I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world. On top of the world. People ask me what my secret is, I just smile and say, live for today. I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the sun came up and I gotta say, see it in a whole new way. I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world. Yeah. On top of the world. Yeah. I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world. Yeah. On top of the world. Yeah. I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world. People ask me what my secret is. On top of the world. I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world. People ask me what my secret is. On top of the world. I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world. Yeah, I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world.
Hello world, wake me up to another good morning, time to go. Got that smile upon my face, cause there's excitement in the chase, this I know. Yeah, I'm going for the ride and find myself, I am alive, and I soar. Still I run toward the wind and let the challenge draw me in, cause I want more. Oh, we are all looking for adventure. 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 Oh, wake up heart and wake up mind, and see the world is yours to find. And with every passing day there's more, calling you out to explore. Get up and go. There is joy found in the race, and I feel it in the place where I'm free. And I simply can't deny it, that I feel adventure calling. be. Living free, living free, living free, and I was meant to be. I'm living free, living free, living free, and I was meant to be free, meant to be free.
Isang makakalikasan, maulan at magandang hapon, climate reality leaders at sa lahat ng nanonood ngayon sa ating live sa ating Facebook page. So ako po pala si Marvz Corachea, isang climate reality leader at isa sa magsisilbing host ng Klimatotohanan episode natin today na pinamagatang Power to the People, Community-Led Renewable Energy Initiatives in the Philippines. Ang episode natin ngayong araw ay konektado sa episode natin last week, kung saan tinalakay natin ang sitwasyon, mga challenges at opportunities para sa renewable energy sa Luzon, Visayas at Mindanao at siyempre sa national perspective. Representatives from the Department of Energy mismo ang nakausap natin last week na nagbigay ng mga updated figures sa RE at kahit mas maliit pa rin ang porsyento ng renewable energy sa national and regional levels, ang goal naman talaga ay lalong papatakasin ito sa lalong madaling panahon. Ngayong araw naman, nag-imbita tayo from non-government organizations, an energy company, and even an energy coalition para alamin ang mga initiatives nila sa renewable, para alamin ang mga initiatives nila on renewable energy para sa ating mga komunidad. Pero bago ang lahat, kung napansin niyo Magyo, kinakabahan ako ipapakilala ko muna ang co-host ko para sa episode natin na to. Kaya medyo naka-semi-formal po tayo ngayon dahil very professional po ang makakasama ko today. Siya po ay may regular show lang naman sa Butuan City at syempre siya rin ang ating Mindanao Coordinator for Climate Reality Philippines. So nag-uulat, live na live natin makakasama, Miss Marisol Tuso. Pasok! Hello Miss Marisol, kamusta ka naman at ang weather dyan sa inyong lugar?
Hi Marvz, maayong hapon sa tanan mula dito sa Mindanao. Magandang hapon sa ating mga climate reality leaders at lahat ng nanonood sa ating Facebook Live. Okay naman na so far ang panahon namin dito sa Mindanao. Tama ka Marvz, meron akong radio show and I'm actually doing regular newscast at sa radyo ang tawag ko ay Kasamang Babes. Pero enough about me, Marvz. Napaka-importante ng usapin natin ngayong araw dahil malalaman natin ang mga inisyatibo ng ating mga partner organizations that are on the ground and working with our communities on renewable energy development. Aalamin natin ang epekto ng mga ito sa kanilang kabuhayan at pang-araw-araw na gawain. At syempre, yung mga challenges at mga pangangailangan sa paghatid ng kuryente sa ating mga komunidad. Maswerte tayo kung tutuusin dahil meron tayong kuryente, nakakapag-aral ng husto, may internet, nakakanood ng TV, nakakagamit ng ating cellphone, nakakapag-webinar tulad nito. Pero alam nyo ba na humigit kumulang 1.6 milyong kabahayan sa ating bansa ay wala pa ring kuryente? At ito pa Marvz, humigit sa 50 milyong Pilipino na nakatira sa mga isolated and island grids ay diesel pa rin ang gamit ng mga electric cooperatives para sa kuryente na pinagkukunan nila. Ganito ang sitwasyon sa ating mga komunidad at nakikita nga na napakalaking oportunidad na mabigyan sila ng sapat at malinis na source ng kuryente gamit ang renewable energy dahil sa mga teknolohiya at sistema na suwak sa kanilang pangangailangan at sitwasyon.
Yes, so agree ako sa mga sinabi mo Marisol at syempre napakainit pa rin ang balita tungkol sa latest report ng Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change. Ulitin ko lang, medyo nabulol ako doon. Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change of IPCC. Sila yung grupo ng climate scientists sa buong mundo na halos lahat ng bansa ay miyembro nito. Sa kanilang report, sinabi nila na palala na ng palala ang global warming dahil sa mga pagbuga mula sa coal, natural gas, oil, at gaya nga ng nabanggit mo Marisol, sa diesel. At ang lahat ng ito ay tinatawag nating fossil fuels na siyang number one cause ng global warming o pagtaas ng temperatura sa mundo. Alam din naman natin na sa bawat pagtaas ng antas ng global warming ay mas lumalala at mas dumadalas ang epekto ng climate change tulad ng mga bagyo, pag-ulan, pagbaha at tagtuyot. At sinasabi din na yung ibang epekto ay magiging irreversible o hindi na maitatama pa sa loob ng mahabang panahon tulad ng sea level rise o pagtaas ng ating mga karagatan na maaaring anurin o lunurin ang ating mga komunidad na nasa baybayin o tabing dagat.
Nakakabahala talaga, Marvz. Pero silang mga scientists na rin mismo ang nagsabi na kayang-kaya pa natin ilimit ang global warming sa 1.5 degrees Celsius o yung temperature na para sa ating bansa ay yon ang ating climate threshold for survival. Lampas dito ay lubos ang magiging epekto sa ating buhay, kapaligiran at maging sa buong mundo at kinabukasan nating lahat. At ayon pa sa ating mga experts, para naman hindi lumampas sa 1.5, yung global warming ay kailangan ng malawakan at agarang pagbawas sa ating pagbuga na nakakasamang usok at gases mula sa fossil fuels. At tuluyan namang gumamit ng makabagong teknolohiya at sistema galing sa renewable sources. Ngayong araw, malalaman natin ito mula sa ating mga inimbitang mga guest kung paano ito nangyayari at sinusubukan sa ating mga komunidad.
Yes, Marisol. So kaya ako sobrang excited na ako makausap ang ating mga guests. Pero idadagdag ko na rin na may mga makakausap din tayong mga mga climate reality leaders from our youth cluster. So mga ka-age ko lang to. So para sa ating napaka-exciting na climate activism segment. Meron din tayong special segment from the British Council Philippines. Mukhang need ko ka atang i-practice ang aking British accent. Abangan nyo ang mga yan mamaya. Pero bago ang lahat, ipapaalala muna natin sa mga viewers ngayon sa Facebook, kagaya na nakagawian natin sa ating mga nakaraang episodes, maaari kayong makatanggap ng certificate sa panonood lamang ngayon. So paano? Una, kailangan nyo lang i-comment ang inyong pangalan sa Facebook post itong live stream. Pwede nyo rin dagdagan ng greeting o mensahe kung saan kayo nanonood ngayon. So pwedeng, for example, hello, ako si Marvz, watching from Imus, Cavite. At pangalawa, kailangan nyo lang sagutan ang feedback form pagkatapos ng ating episode na ibabahagi namin sa inyo sa Facebook at sundin lang ang instructions kung paano ito isasubmit.
Napaka-simple, Marvz. And just to add, if you have questions, suggestions, and messages to our speakers, just type them in the comment section. We will find time later to ask those questions from our guests. So Marvz, ano pang hinihintay natin? Let's now introduce our speakers for today.
Yes, so Marisol, so for our first speaker is the convener of our Energy 2030 and the Southeast Asia Engagement Lead for Energy and Climate at World Resources Institute. He has 15 years of in-depth experience in the clean energy space, which includes leading business development of 22 megawatts successfully commissioned renewable energy projects, along with securing 50 megawatts of project development contracts in the Philippines, advising global Fortune 500 companies in their renewables procurement roadmaps, successfully developing the first bank finance solar projects in the Philippines, and pioneering climate finance practice locally and regionally. He was also the convener of the Greening the Banks initiative, an ASEAN-wide program aiming to mobilize private sector participation in green finance. So ladies and gentlemen, ang ating po unang guest ay si Mr. Marlon Apanada, pero medyo lang po tayo. Hinihintay lang po, medyo busy po kasi ang talagang ating mga guests. So babalikan po natin siya. So Janice, I mean Marisol, kakamali na talaga. Sabi ko nakabado talaga ako ngayon kasi kasama kita eh. So Marisol, sino ba yung next guest natin na ipapakilala mo?
Ikaw talaga, Marvz. O, tuloy naman. Nawa ako sa'yo. Okay, our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, siya yung climate reality leader who currently serves as the corporate social responsibility manager of First Gen Corporation. She spearheaded First Gen's Create for the Climate program, which aims to increase awareness on climate change and encourage climate action. Before joining First Gen, she was engaged in a poverty reduction program with the Philippine Business for Social Progress. Friends, nandito ba si Janice or Tanis Dugan? Magandang hapon, Janice.
Good afternoon.
Yeah. Please greet our viewers and briefly answer our opening question for this episode. Ikaw yung mauna, Janice. Ano nga ba ang clean energy para sa'yo?
Magandang hapon sa lahat. For me, clean energy is a bridge that connects social justice and environmental justice towards economic prosperity. I think it is very important for us, for all of us, para ma-achieve natin yung pag-unlad ng ating bansa.
Yes, so thank you, Janice, sa inyong sagot. Short pero very meaningful yung answer ni Janice. So, ayan, thank you for sharing that very short and sweet message about the clean energy. So, our next speaker naman, or our next guest, is also a climate reality leader. He is the president and founder of Solar Hope, a non-government organization working to provide solar and sustainable solutions to marginalized communities in the country. He is also currently working as a cost control principal engineer at the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines. We are very happy to have with us today Mr. Mark Napao. So hello Mark, salamat sa pagpapaunlak mo sa amin ngayong hapon. Gaya ng nauna nating speaker na si Janice, ano naman sa'yo ang what is clean energy for you? So in English ko lang, diba?
Yeah, for me, ang clean energy is something that enjoying the benefits of having energy or electricity na pwede ma-enjoy even of the next generation. So yun I think ang idea ko ng clean energy.
Salamat, Mark. And very quick also yung answer niya. Ang susunod naman nating speaker ay isa ring climate reality leader. He is a clean energy advocate from Cebu Province, Philippines, with a background in electronics and communications engineering. He is also a fellow of Young Sustainable Impact Southeast Asia 2020. Having experience living in the dark and using only kerosene lamps to study at night, he started Light of Hope PH in 2017 as a grassroots movement that aims to electrify less privileged and off-the-grid communities. Mga kaibigan, let's all welcome Mr. Jovie Montaje. Hello, Jovie. Ikaw naman ang tatanungin namin, what does clean energy mean to you? Yes, Jovie?
Andyan. Ay, nakamute. Ay, yan. Okay na.
Hello.
Yeah.
Good afternoon po sa lahat.
Mayong hapon.
Maayong hapon. So, clean energy po, it should be renewable and non-pollutant source of energy.
So, ayun na. Very sobrang quick lang ng very short na sagot ni Jovie, na napahinto talaga ako sa pag-iisip Sobrang, pero yung thank you Jovie. So, umpisa na natin yung ating program ngayon. So, I think Marisol, unahin muna natin tanungin si Janice.
Okay. All right. So Janice, I think is ready, no? What I really like about the initiatives is that for Marlon later let's listen from the initiatives of Marlon later. Okay, so for our next speaker, okay, Janice, since you are in the private sector, our questions for you is, what is the role of business in our goals towards just transition to clean energy? Paano ba sinusuportahan, ma'am, yung first gen as a business enterprise, ang low carbon transformation ng Pilipinas? At paano ba sinusuportahan ng first gen ang local communities through its corporate social responsibility initiatives? Janice?
Okay, can I share my slides? Okay. To answer the first question, I'm gonna show this slide. This is a slide that we have been using for our IEC campaigns. And I think most of you are familiar with the images in the slides. So agriculture, waste, industry, transportation, deforestation, and energy. So these are the sources of greenhouse gas emissions. Behind these emissions are actually businesses. Diba? In every burger that we order is a food business. In every car that we ride in is a transportation business. So behind our greenhouse gas emissions are businesses. And unless businesses are become mindful of the practices, our emissions will be the same. Recently, the IPCC report, AR6 has called on the code red for humanity and said that unless there were immediate, rapid, and large-scale reductions in greenhouse gas emissions, limiting global warming to the internationally agreed threshold of 1.5 degrees Celsius would be beyond reach. For me, one way of reducing greenhouse gas emissions is a shift to a clean energy source. And I believe on us individuals, it is the businesses who have the resources and the power to do that shift. Kasi like for example, tayong mga consumers, wala naman tayong kakayahan na mamili kung saan tayo bibili ng kuryente. And at the same time, we cannot require everybody to install solar panels in their homes because that would not be economically viable for every Filipino. But businesses have that option. They have the resources and they have that power to choose their source of electricity. They also have the resources to ensure that in the transition, they have the resources and the role to ensure that in that transition, nobody will be left behind. For me, businesses can help shape policies and regulations to ensure that jobs and livelihoods will not be displaced during the course of the transition. Now, let me share with you how our company, First Gen, is using our power to choose and to contribute to the just transition of the country. First Gen is a leading clean, renewable, and low carbon power producer. So we have natural gas, hydro, geothermal, wind, and solar. We operate about 30 power plants across the country with a total installed capacity of 3,495.2 megawatts. So essentially, we light one of every 5 light bulbs in the country. So if you look at our portfolio, 58% is natural gas, so 42% are from renewable sources. In 2016, our chairman, Federico Lopez, declared that we will not invest into coal. He said, and I quote, "Today, let me state unequivocally and for the record that FPH and its subsidiaries will not build, develop, or invest in any coal-fired power plant. I'm certain that without having to look too far, this country has energy alternatives that do not mortgage the future of our children and future of our planet." End of quote. So this is how our company chose to use our power to contribute to the just transition. You might wonder, however, why we still have natural gas in our portfolio. For us, natural gas plays a very critical role in the just transition. I think this is also included in the RE plan of the RE roadmap of the country, correct? Natural gas actually answers the energy trilemma of having clean, affordable, and reliable source of electricity. Clean because it is 60% cleaner than coal and definitely affordable. It is reliable as well because one of the impacts of climate change is actually drought. We've experienced this when there was El Nino in Nueva Ecija. We weren't able to run our hydropower plant. The same thing that because of the severity in the typhoons, when there's no sun, so solar cannot really run. But for natural gas, especially our natural gas power plants, the new ones, are very much reliable. We have the San Gabriel power plant. From cold start to full load, it can run in 2 hours, while our Avion power plant can actually run in 15 minutes, while a coal power plant needs 11 hours from cold start to full load. So imagine already that emission during that 11 hours. But First Gen is not stopping here, not not stopping and saying that natural gas is needed for the transition. We're actually stepping a notch higher. Last year, we launched our new mission of forging collaborative pathways for a decarbonized and regenerative future. Collaborative because we acknowledge that we need to work with all sectors to help shape our policies in ensuring a decarbonized future. Decarbonize because we are actually studying different pathways through which our businesses can help the country transition into a decarbonized economy and meet global goals to stem climate change. And regenerative because we are committing to contribute, if not to transform the lives of our host communities, where we are to make sure that nobody is left behind. In the words of our chairman, again, sustainability is no longer enough. Businesses need to transform into regenerative forces that align our profit engines with the need for healing toward a better world and a safer planet. So this is our chairman, Kiki Lopez. In our aim to be regenerative, we have been implementing various CSR programs in the areas of disaster response, sociocultural, education, environment, livelihood, health and safety, and employee volunteerism. Although this afternoon, I will focus on education, livelihood, and environment, since these are our priority programs. Among our projects for education, well, our CSR programs are aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals. So our aim is to provide our host communities with access to education. So we have been providing school supplies and learning kits, education incentives, teacher training. We've been very active in Brigada Escuela, and also we've been providing college scholarship because we believe that education is a great equalizer. In the pandemic, we've also helped our host schools to transition into the modular and blended learning. For livelihood, so we are helping our communities to be productive. In Lobo, Batangas, we are helping the communities in the development of their ecotourism projects. This is actually a sample of ensuring that while we are protecting our environment, the livelihoods of our communities are not sacrificed so that they're able to manage it sustainably. We've also been upskilling. We're providing skills training and social enterprise development in our communities, as well as senior high school scholarships. We are actually very proud that our scholars share the same values that we have on environmental stewardship. So we have been providing them, we have been educating them on climate change. Actually, one of our criteria for our scholarship project is environmental stewardship. For environment, our programs are actually embedded in our various CSR activities. We acknowledge that both the ocean and the forest are natural carbon sinks, so it is really important to protect these ecosystems. We have been supporting the Verde Island Passage through our Center of Center project in Batangas. The VIP is the Center of Marine Shorefish Biodiversity. So it really plays a very important role in biodiversity conservation. We've also been planting and reforesting through indigenous seedlings. In all our activities, we involve our local community. So everything is done with the local communities. We have been implementing Create for the Climate to forward climate action. So since 2017, we have been implementing the Create for the Climate program. The Create for the Climate aims to increase the awareness of our host communities on climate change mitigation and adaptation, and at the same time, encourage them to come up with climate action projects. We've reached almost 8,000 individuals already. But since the pandemic last year, we transitioned into webinars. So we've been conducting the What's Heating Up webinar. we were able to organize our employees into CFTC ambassadors. So they're helping us promote climate actions within our stakeholder, within and outside our companies. This is a project that we're really proud of. So last year, because the community of Lobo, Batangas is highly dependent on ecotourism. Because of the pandemic, they actually lost their source of income. So what we did last year, we tied up with our employee volunteers. So we've launched a fundraising, and then we told our employees that by planting mangroves, which is a natural protection to climate hazards, they can also help the community. So we've educated our employees. At the same time, it was an added protection for the community of Lobo because we were able to plant. Last year, if you don't know, Lobo was ravaged by 3 typhoons, Quintaroli and another one. And in this project also, the community was able to earn at least 150,000. And then because of what we did, there's another organization who was actually inspired and replicated the project. So the community earned another 150,000 from this initiative. And then we have been encouraging our employees to light it forward. So this year we've sent our employees with solar lamp kits so that they can assemble it. And then these solar lamps were sent to the indigenous communities in Nueva Ecija, Agusan del Norte, and Bukidnon. And then this year we're going out further. So we are conducting the Innovate for the Climate. We are challenging our youth community from our partner organizations, as well as our employees, to take on the challenge or to come up with ideas to address water sufficiency, environmental and ecological sustainability, sustainable energy, waste management, and knowledge and capacity development. So this is quite different from the other hackathons, since this will start this September until November. It will culminate in the CCC week. So to end my presentation, I'd just like to say that the promotion of climate action is really embedded in our company's DNA. In fact, since 2016, our sustainability reports and annual reports have been using these pictures, not so pretty pictures, not the usual pictures, because this talks about climate change. Because what we want in the company is for all of our stakeholders to realize and to understand that the time to act against climate action is now. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Janice. We learned a lot and it was so very inspiring. Babalikan natin yung ibang speakers natin maya-maya lamang. Pero bago yan, narito muna ang ilang paalala mula sa amin sa The Climate Reality Project Philippines. Marvz, take it away.
Yes, so thank you, Marisol. So bago tayo mag-proceed sa reminders, siguro papagsalitaan mo muna natin isa pang speaker. So actually, tama ka doon sa Marisol na gusto ko yung sinabi ni Janice, lalo na yung sa part ng corporate social responsibility nila. Diba? May sustainability projects pa rin sila. Kahit na yun nga, ang focus ng company is about renewable energy. So sa akin, sobrang approve yun. So ngayon naman, dumako tayo sa ating next speaker na si John Mark Napao at ang kanyang organization na Solar Hope, an NGO that aims to provide solar and sustainable solutions to marginalized communities in the Philippines. Medyo bias ako dito kay Mark dahil kilala ko na siya personally at ilang beses ko na rin siya na-feature sa aking advocacy vlog, ang Solar Hope at sa yung mga communities na tinutulungan nila. So Mark, i-share mo naman sa ating mga manonood at tagapakinig kung paano ba nagsimula ang Solar Hope and paano nyo natutulungan ang ating mga communities outside sa Metro Manila.
Thank you, Marvz. No? Na-miss na nga namin yung mga vlog mo.
Okay na eh. After pandemic.
Sige, I'll just share my screen. Meron na, Marvz?
Yes, nakikita na namin siya.
Sige, so good afternoon sa lahat. No? I'm Mark Napao. I'm the president and founder of Solar Hope. And it's an honor to be able to share what we're doing, and hopefully mas marami pa kami ma-inspire to become beacons of hope. So to start, let me ask by asking a simple question. So, have you ever wondered paano pagising mo one morning and hindi ka na makagamit ng ilaw, ng cellphone, ng Facebook, or ng computer? Could you imagine how difficult your life could be without electricity? Well, sadly for some, it's not just a what if. It's their reality. So you know. So in the Philippines alone, there's still millions of households na wala pa ring kuryente, and around 1,000 sitios that are still unelectrified. And most of these areas are rural areas, farmers and fishers who also belong to the highest poverty indices, meaning they are the poorest of the poor. And study shows that there are a big correlation between electrification and development. So with this, this is a clear reason that our country really needs light and hope. Hence, Solar Hope was born. So Solar Hope is an NGO that provides solar and sustainable solutions to marginalized communities dito po sa Pilipinas. And our aim is to be able to light more homes and transition to a just, clean energy. So paano po namin yung ginagawa? First, we start by community engagement or mapping. Basically, this is our way of getting to know the community more and understand their challenges and plan with them ano yung solutions that they would need. And once okay na sa kanila yung project, we start working with community champions or community leaders and train them on basic solar and how to do the installation. Because eventually, sila din yung mag-i-install dun sa mga community nila. So after the installation is done, we will validate if the solar installed are working properly. So yun. So that way, there's ownership. At the same time, if they need to troubleshoot anything, kaya na rin nila to work in their community. So yun. So we started our journey in 2017, and we started with the Badjaos in Batangas, Dumagats in Rawang Tanay, Mangyans in Mindoro, another Dumagat in Calawis, Antipolo, and another community in Morong, Rizal. And we've been doing series of community engagements to be able to help these communities. And this is our impact so far. Together with our communities and community champions, we have adopted 5 communities, lighted 459 homes under our core project Tanglao, and empowered more than 600 beacons of hope. And this is our ongoing project right now. We have Tanglao for Everyone, with the aim of lighting 400 more homes in Rizal. And our aim is to be able to help these families and beneficiaries to be able to cope ngayong pandemic, at the same time dun sa mga anak nila that are undergoing distance learning of modality. So yan. And these are the communities under Tanglao 4. So most of these are in Rizal and also IP communities. So for us, every lighted home is a beacon of hope. Ang dream namin is someday, bawat yung mga natulungan namin is sila naman din ang magiging ilaw ng pag-asa sa iba. And before I end, I want to share yung story of our communities, our projects, and of course, how I started it in the first place. People are saying na the project is good, inspiring, and very motivational. But actually, Solar Hope is a fruit of my depression. I was in the verge of really giving up everything in life, but everything changed when I joined an outreach sa Badjao in Batangas. During the immersion, what's supposed to be yung ako yung dapat tutulong sa kanila, baliktad yung nangyari. The experience, the immersion in the community was able to taught me how to be grateful more in life. So after that experience and immersion, being an electrical engineer, yung kuryente nila yung una ko napansin. In the community, ang normal is 1 electric meter, 1 household. But in this community, 1 electric meter, 17 households. So sobrang prone nun sa fire and delikado for the community. So we started with that, and it eventually the passion project of Solar Hope grew and grew, and hence the journey that I've been sharing earlier. So yun. So and I believe that this is something that I'll be doing for the rest of my life, giving hope and light to the lives and homes of people. So yun. So this is my challenge to each and everyone na nakikinig sa atin ngayon, na no matter how small sa tingin niyo yung kaya niyo magawa, it might be already the huge difference dun sa mga natutulungan natin. And to answer yung question ng what are the stories of the projects in the community, I guess the best people to answer that are the communities themselves. So let me share a video of our Tanglao success stories.
Mga paghihirap ko po noong mga panahon na wala pa kaming solar o liwanag ng buhay, napakadilim as nakakalungkot kasi may mga anak ka na nag-aaral, hindi makapag-aral lalo po sa gabi na gusto nila magbasa.
That time, ang may ilaw lang po dito ay mga siguro mga 20%. Minsan wala pa talaga yung andila.
Nakaka-overwhelm po kasi sa totoo lang, personally based on my experience din, kasi dito nga po ako pinanganak, elementary pa lang ako, nabuhay na kami ng madilim talaga. As in wala kang inaasahang ilaw sa gabi, makakapag-aral ka, kailangan bago mawala yung liwanag, tapos mo na yung gawain mo.
Siguro po yung nakikita ko ditong problema sa maritime ay edukasyon. Dahil po kakaunti lang po sa katulad po namin na kabataan, mga batang nag-aaral.
Ang inasahan ko po, sana magkakaroon po kami ng permanenteng lugar po at yung lalo-lalo na po yung bahay.
Mahirap po ng kuryente. Yun ay isa sa pangailangan talaga ng komunidad namin, ng pamayanan ng pailaw, ilaw. Dahil sa gabi, hirap halos sa yung magkakasama sa bahay, hindi kami magpapangita.
Mahirap po sa amin pag dating po ng hapon ay talagang may kadiliman, kumbaga wala po talaga kaming ilaw, kaya yung aming po mga anak na nag-aaral ay medyo nahihirapan sila sa pag-aaral nila.
Malaking bagay po sa solar hook na yan kasi nung wala pa po kami solar, gasera pa lang po ilaw namin. Eh, siyempre gas po yun. Eh, ngayon wala na pong mabiling gas. Iba pa, gas. Dumating nga po si Sir Mark na nagparating ng liwanag sa buhay namin. Napaka-ginhawa po ng may ilaw kung maliwanag ang aming pamilya sa loob ng bahay.
Malaking bagay sa amin yan eh. Yung gastos medyo nabawasan kasi sa gasera, gabi-gabi bibili ka. Minsan wala kang pambili, pipis ka na lang ng madilim. Ay nitong mayroon solar, tuloy-tuloy yung liwanag.
Yung bagay lalo na itong mga solar, nakakatulong sa mga mag-aaral upang kahit gabi pwede nilang masilip yung module nila at makapagsagot. Maraming tulong na naibibigay itong liwanag na ito para sa kanila.
Laki pong pasasalamat namin ng mga guro na dumating po si Solar Hope, gayon din si ate ko dahil pinagkalooban po talaga ng solar yung aming mga kabahayan dito sa komunidad ng Rawang, na kung saan ang tulong na ipinagkakaloob na ito sa mga mag-aaral namin ay napakalaki sa kanilang pag-aaral.
Naging magaan po kasi dati po wala po kaming ilaw. Ngayon po, yung dumating po kayo na bigyan po ng pagkakataon na magkailaw yung bahay namin.
Kaibahan po ng sa aming buhay yung nakarating po ang solar hook sa amin. Una-una po nabigyan kami ng pag-asa para magkakaroon ng ilaw.
Una po, ako'y nagpapasalamat po sa grupo po ni Sir Mark sa Solar Hope. Napakalaking bagay po nito para sa amin. Dahil nga po sa pagkakabisita niya doon sa amin noong 2019 at nakita niyo yung kalalagayan, pinursigi po niya na kami po ay matulungan doon sa suliranin na nakikita niya sa amin.
Actually, laking tulong ng Solar Hope. Solar Hope talaga yung nagbigay ng ilaw sa buong Macandon, sa buong community. Dito sila nakaranas na nakakapag-charge sila ng ilaw na galing sa araw. So, sabi, dati gumagamit sila ng ilaw na nagpapacharge pa sila sa baba, ang bigat ng battery. Nung dumating ang Solar Hope, talagang sobrang para sila nabunutan ng tinik. May ilaw na sila, nakalibre pa sila. Parang talagang liwanag sila ng buhay. Solar Hope at saka yung Tanglaw.
Tanglaw project has been very successful. Like, I think it's the third one that we are implementing now, and it's almost a year since we met Solar Hope, and we are very happy about the partnership and all the time how the project is implemented.
Maraming salamat talaga. Yan yung salita lang na nais kong o kaya kong bigkasin. Kasi naniniwala ako na it is God who orchestrated these things, no? Na pinagtagpo tayo dito sa crossroad na ito para magdala ng pag-asa.
Ang pasasalamat ko po sa lahat ng tumutulong sa amin, lalo na sa community. Kayo ang talagang naging susi, kaya nagiging matagumpay yung mga proyekto rito. Kung wala kayo, wala rin talagang uusad. So, buong puso po kami nagpapasalamat in behalf ng Solar Hope sa lahat ng naging partners, sa lahat ng community champions na tumutulong sa amin, sa Rawang Elementary School, ate ko, Ingram, sa lahat po ng tumutulong sa amin. Patuloy po tayong maging ilaw ng pag-asa.
Yun, thank you. So actually, yun na po yung presentation ko. So my challenge is for us to continue doing, no matter how small yung ginagawa natin. I guess it will be a big impact sa lahat. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Mark. Grabe, ang ganda ng shinare mo, Mark. Especially
yes,
yung
again, Ate Marisol.
Yes, it's really inspiring, no? Especially yung kanyang pag-share sa personal reason for setting up Solar Hope, which gave light to yourself and now to a whole lot of
Actually,
people
Marisol,
and
parang
communities.
Siguro tanungin muna, sorry sa Miss Marisol.
Okay.
Alam niyo,
Sige.
sobrang biased
Parang
talaga
excited
ako.
ka eh. Sige, go.
Sobrang biased kasi talaga ako kay Mark. Gusto ko talaga i-share niya. Marisol, yung reason talaga kung bakit nagkaroon ng Solar Hope, kung paano siya naging related sa personal niya. So alam ko may mga tanong ka, Miss Marisol, pero itanong lang talaga natin. Sorry, excite lang talaga ako.
Sige, go. Sige, mas maganda yung na-share niya.
So,
Okay.
go, Mark.
Sige. Thank you, no,
Yes, Mark.
Marvz and Ma'am Marisol. Actually, yun nga, it started, I think 2017. I was going through a hard time, and actually, I was diagnosed with anxiety disorder, eventually leading to depression. So, mahirap kasi sa mental illness, pag ganun parang spiraling down ka pababa pag hindi mo nilabanan. And ikaw lang din talaga ang makakalaban nun. Kailangan wag ka sumuko, ganyan, wag ka mawalan ng pag-asa. So parang I was really in the verge of giving up, but everything changed nung sumama ako sa outreach sa Batangas. So parang yun yung naging turning point ko. And yun, parang being an electrical, yung ilaw, parang siya parang both symbolic tsaka practical. Kasi yun din yung kailangan ng community at that time. So parang that experience gave me light and hope. So kaya Solar Hope. Ayun.
Okay. Salamat. Thank you for sharing that, no? Nakakaantig ng puso. I'm sure meron o marami sa ating nanonood or nakikinig are dealing with the same kind of stress. May anxiety, depression, but as what we learned from Mark's story, let us not forget to create or be the light to ourselves and for the people around us. Ang drama, no? But it's really the motivation and inspiration behind everything we do that keeps us moving forward to overcome any challenges. Speaking of which, bumalik na tayo agad sa discussion and ask Mark naman about the national and regional barriers to the development and implementation of renewable energy in our regions and communities. Alam naman natin na big factor talaga ang pera or funding, but then We have organizations such as Solar Hope that do invest the time and resources. So I guess the follow-up question would be, Mark, how can we stimulate investments on renewable energy within our regions? Mark?
Yeah, actually no, nakaka-amaze po. I guess nung panahon na nagvo-volunteer pa si Marvz pre-pandemic, yun ang challenge namin talaga. Parang saan kami kukuha ng pera, dami nating tutulungan community. But what's amazing is when people saw the motivation of or what you're doing, talagang they will support eh. This pandemic and even this year, mas lalong dumagsa yung support na ang problema na namin sa community na tayo pupunta. So I guess it's really parang if you think you can help your community in any means or any way you can, just start and people will start believing in what you believe as well. So yun, I guess yun yung challenge and encouragement ko sa lahat.
Yes, so tama dyan. So Marisol, ikaw ano bang masasabi mo sa mga sinabi ni Mark at saka sa sinabi din ni Janice before tayo mag-proceed sa reminders natin?
Actually, common experience sa kanila is yung talagang community works. Nakita nila yung needs sa community, and actually naantig ako sa mga istorya nila, Marvz. And hindi ako nalalayo sa mga istorya nila about yung when I was so small, I was also studying na using that kerosene lamp. No, hindi nalalayo yung mga istorya natin.
Yes, sobra. Ako kasi hindi naman pinanganak na mayaman pero tama lang. So hindi tayo nakaka-relate pero pag narinig natin yung mga stories talaga, yung mga kung paano nag-start yung mga NGO nito or anything na mga sustainable projects talaga is very touching talaga sa akin at saka feeling ko sobrang nakakatulong talaga sila hindi lang para sa iba kundi para sa buong bansa na rin natin. So eto na nga. So salamat Marisol sa yung mga words of wisdom. Marami din ako natutunan from you sa ating mga unang guest na sina Mark at sina Janice. So eto na sa ating mga reminders. Marami po tayong yung reminders. So una na dyan ay para sa ating mga Pinoy Climate Reality Leaders. The deadline for accomplishing the Training and Needs Assessment Survey is extended until August 31, 2021. Huwag kayong mag-alala, hindi po kayo aabuti ng 30 minutes para lang sa pagsagot ng survey based sa experience ko yan. So the link to this survey was sent to your email addresses. Kaya i-check nyo na ang inyong mga inbox or spam folders. Pwede kasi doon napunta sa spam eh. Kung di pa kayo nakakatanggap ng email, maaari lamang mag-reach out to any of our branch staff or via email and social media accounts ng The Climate Reality Project Philippines. Importante ang pagsagot ninyo sa survey na ito. The result of this survey will be the basis for designing capacity building activities para sa ating Pinoy Climate Reality Leaders. So malaking bagay po yung pagsagot ng survey para matulungan natin yung branch natin at siyempre para din sa ibang climate reality leaders na pwede natin matulungan sa mga initiatives nila. So bukod riyan, ang survey na ito ay makakatulong din para malaman ng branch kung paano pa natin masusuportahan ang inyong mga initiatives or climate action goals bilang climate reality leaders, hindi lang sa Pilipinas, kundi maski sa buong mundo. So, Marisol?
And yeah, you're right, Marvz. That survey is really very important. And another equally important announcement from the branch is this. We are pleased to invite everyone to join our community and become a certified Pinoy Climate Reality Leader. Open na ang registration for the 2021 Climate Reality Global Training. Pumunta lamang sa link na nakikita ninyo sa inyong screen. It's bit.ly/climate-reality-training. This 9-day training is free, online, and packed with information on how we can solve the climate crisis together. It's your ticket to join the Climate Reality Leadership Corps, a global network of more than 36,000 change makers leading the fight for just climate solutions across the planet. Ayan na, mag-register na kayo dahil limited lang ang slots ng mga ito.
Yes, tama ka dyan, Marisol. So register na ating mga climate reality leaders, and also we would also like to invite everyone to support our Race to a Better Reality fundraising campaign, which aims to fund the installation of solar panels in an elementary school in one of the island communities in Cebu. Ang fundraiser sa campaign na ito ay in partnership with the organization of one of our guest speakers today, which is the Light of Hope PH. Mapakinggan natin kanya mamaya. To support this project, you must purchase tickets for the film The Race to Save the World. This documentary features the passion and unwavering commitment of climate warriors ages 15 to 72 years old to fight for a sustainable future. There are two ways to avail the tickets. Kung kayo po ay may credit card, maaari kayong diretsong bumili sa streaming site na naka-flash sa inyong mga screen. So, yan po yung, yes. Maaari din po kayong bumili ng tickets through GCash, Paymaya, and bank transfer. Sa bank po ng Climate Reality, pwede rin po sa bangko, joke lang. Pumunta lamang sa Facebook page ng Climate Reality Philippines para malaman ang detailed instructions para sa option na ito. So, ayan. So, dahil sa dami ng ating announcement, ay didiretso na tayo sa ating next guest. So, ngayon naman, ang ating kakapanayamin ay sorry, ako po'y nawawala. Eto na. Yan, nakikita nyo na ba ako? So, eto, ang ating next guest ay kakausapin naman natin si Jovie Montajes ng Light of Hope PH, which is nabanggit ko kanina sa ating reminders dun sa Race to a Better Reality. Siyempre, gusto rin natin malaman yung story niya at ng organization, and of course, yung motivations, inspirations to start Light of Hope PH and the success story supporting our communities. So Jovie, maaari ba mong i-share din sa amin kung ano ba yung story behind this organization at yung siyempre yung bakit siya Light of Hope PH?
Thanks, Marvz, and good afternoon. Maayong hapon sa tanan. I am Jovie from Cebu province. I'm just waiting for the slide to come up. So, yeah. All right. So, thank you for this opportunity. Light of Hope Philippines. We are a grassroots movement from Cebu province, and we aim to help address two major problems. That is on the next slide, which is the energy poverty and climate change. So with the energy poverty, according to the latest data from the UN, meron pa tayong around 789 million people globally na wala pa ring access sa kuryente. And this includes 13 million people in the Philippines, mostly because of poverty. And as what was shared previously with Mark, they're using kerosene lamps or either yung mga truck ng baterya, mabibigat, tapos pinapacharge nila sa malalapit na may kuryente, which is costly and also mabigat for the families. And using these alternatives like the kerosene and candles, prone din siya sa sunog. Actually, one of our beneficiaries shared with us na they almost died. Like the whole house muntik nang masunog kasi nasipa nung pusa yung lampara nila. So if tulog na sila at that time, then they might, so dangerous talaga ang kerosene lamps at saka candles. Yung second problem naman is yung climate change. Well, climate change is a very broad topic and it was shared on the previous slides already. But let's zoom in to the latest severe weather conditions. Like in July, dito sa countries in the Central Europe, just July this year, meron silang naka-experience sila ng catastrophic severe flooding. At ito yung mga advanced countries, and they never experienced flooding for a long time. And zooming in dito sa Pilipinas, last week lang, August 13 yata, so nabalita siya sa news, umulan ng yelo sa Bulacan. And it's very weird for a tropical country like the Philippines to have hailstorm, umuulan ng ice. Not snow, but ice, yung nakakabukol. So these are these are really effects of the climate change. And also, ang Pilipinas, we are visited by around 20 typhoons per year. And yung intensity ng typhoons ay nag-i-increase year by year. So we really have to do something about it. On the next slide. And so our motivation, why we started Light of Hope PH, because it stems from looking at the future. Now right now we have experienced the paradise, like islands, we go to the mountains, but what about the next generations to come? Yung mga grandchildren and grandchildren's ng grandchildren's natin. So we want to preserve this paradise. We want to preserve planet Earth for the next generations to come. And in doing so, we also wanted to help the less privileged communities na always and always lang silang behind in terms of the technological advancements of the humanity. So yun yung motivation namin. Next slide. And the very first initiative that we did was the solar night lamps in the Battle project with the guidance of our technical mentor, Engineer Edmond Briseño. So we were able to upcycle more than 3,020 PET plastic bottles, and we turned them into a solar night lamp, which would displace those kerosene lamps from the family's households. And we were able to empower more than 1,500 family beneficiaries within the Visayas and Mindanao region. And also at the same time, we engaged more than 1,000 volunteers. Mostly dito, the biggest chunk of this is from the academe, because we do workshops in the schools. Yung pinakabata na workshop namin is even grade 3 from one of elementary schools or international elementary schools here in Cebu. And then yung mga na-assembled na solar lamps were then donated to the community beneficiaries that they have selected or near their areas. So yun yung solar night lamps in a Battle project. And of course, with the pandemic, their needs has increased. Like for example, they need to charge the mobile phones. So we need to innovate and think about how we can serve them more. And we come up with the Cloud Grid Solutions Initiative, which is on the next slide. We were able to ideate this last year. The aim for the Cloud Grid Solutions is to provide affordable, clean energy access to the low-income communities. And also it can be a platform for passionate individuals to give them a way to voluntarily offset their carbon footprints by funding the Cloud Grid units. So on the next slide, we will see the traction of the Cloud Grid Solutions. So we built a simple mobile app to map where the Cloud Grid units or the family beneficiaries are located. And also we put in a CO2 emissions tracker. We put in an algorithm to calculate the CO2 emissions, and this is the latest screenshot from our mobile app. Currently, nasa 955 kilograms of CO2 emissions na ang nare-reduce natin. And this is only coming from 17 family beneficiaries, meaning 17 Cloud Grid units na na-deploy. And next week on Sunday, we will be deploying another 15 units in Lapu-Lapu community, and next month would be 5 more units in Cebu communities. Next slide. So with the Cloud Grid Solutions project, it's a bit expensive. Malalaki yung solar panel. We have to innovate on the battery system and also the mobile app. So we need funding. And it's pandemic. So mahirap talaga yung funds. What we did was, we joined competitions. In December 2020, the Cloud Grid Initiative won the Unified Awards Philippines Environment category. And that was supported by the YSILI Philippines and the US Embassy in the Philippines. So that's the national competition. And just recently, this year, we were also one of the 10 finalists out of 244 submissions from 40 different countries for the British Council COP26 Destination Zero Innovation Challenge. We're so proud to be selected for this. And because of that win, on the next slide, we were able to build our Cloud Grid carbon offset platform. So the platform can be accessed at the link above, which is the lightofhopeph.org. So this is a platform where passionate individuals can offset their carbon footprints by funding the Cloud Grid units. And they will receive notifications, emails with regards to their beneficiaries. And also for people or organizations who will be funding more than 5 units, they will have access to the mobile app wherein they can track how much CO2 emissions na yung nare-reduce nila monthly, weekly, and yearly basis. So once again, that's lightofhopeph.org.
Salamat, Jovie.
Next
Gusto
slide.
ko lang din, okay, may next slide ka pa?
Yeah,
Sorry.
meron pa.
Okay, please proceed. I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries. So other ways to support the initiative is that we have the Solar Night Lamp in a Bottle project. And also we are building the power backup, which is very useful right now. If you saw the news that buong Cebu grid ay nag-off last night. So merong nag-trip na parang isang power grid. Tapos buong Cebu as nag-down. Tapos that was Friday night and everyone or mostly everyone are working from home. And most of the people who already bought the Tough Case 36 power backup was very happy because meron silang backup sa kanilang router at saka laptop nila. And also, napuno rin yung inbox natin kagabi for orders of the Tough Case 36 power backup. And so if you're interested for that, you can always send us a message on our Facebook page. And lastly, also, I would like to on the next page, the partnership of the Light of Hope Philippines and the youth cluster of the Climate Reality Project. Please do watch and support the Race to Save the World. Portion po ng fundraiser na ito would be to solarize the whole elementary and high school of Panganan Island. And this will also serve as the area wherein they can go in case there are emergencies. Because this is a small island and just this year alone, we are seeing already that when yung mataas yung tide, pumapasok na yung tubig sa isla. So, which is the effects of the climate change again, the sea level rise. And thank you very much for the opportunity. We hope that you would continue to support us.
Thank you so much, Jovie. We learned a lot from Light of Hope PH. Gusto ko lang din tanungin, Jov, tungkol dito sa mga technologies niya, no? Given his background on electronics and communications engineering. Jovie, were you interested from the start to work on this renewable energy technologies? And matanong ko rin yung issue on funding or investment for such technologies. Kasi syempre, gawing Pinoy ito, dapat talaga masuportahan. How can the government, companies, other organizations, or citizens support your organization's work?
Thank you, Ms. Marisol. So yes, the background ko po is electronics and communications engineering. But when you go out in college, di mo pa alam yan lahat. Kasi ano pa lang yan basic pa lang sa college. But you learn it from the field. when you practice it already. And also you have mentors to teach you on how to do it. So yun, and then for funding, yeah, so yung na-share ko kanina, it's difficult talaga. Funding is really, really difficult. But if you don't do something to find that funding, wala ka ring magagawa. Like all talk, like puro ka na lang salitaan, wala kang magagawa. So you have to be innovative, find a way. Tingnan mo kung ano yung nakikita mong paraan. For us, what we saw was, because we have the technology, what we saw was the competition. So yun yung nakita namin na magiging funding namin. And we did join a lot of competitions. So far, we won just 2, but maybe more than 100 na siguro na join na namin. But you know, just getting 2, it's already elevated the technology, and we're gonna be adding IoT by next year for the units. And how can the people support? So yun, you can go to the platform, thelightofhopeph.org. That is for individual contribution. Offset your carbon footprint. And if you're working from home and you need a power backup like a UPS, just send us a message on our Facebook page, and then yung fundraiser natin for the Panganan High School and Elementary. Yan po.
Yes, so thank you very much, Jovie. Actually, ang dami kong natutunan. Sa gusto ko yung isang project nyo na solar night lamps. Grabe. Solar na night pa, tapos lampa. Ang ganda, diba? So anyway, ang dami kong natutunan, Miss Marisol.
Para lang M&M, parang M&M, Marlon at saka Marvin at saka Marisol.
Kaya nga po sobrang na-enjoy ko yung usapan natin na sobrang nag-agree ako sa nasabi na ng una nating mga 3 guests. So meron pa po tayong susunod na yung clean energy is not only one of the primary solutions to keep global warming at relatively safe limits. It also plays a critical role in achieving the economic, social, and environmental objectives of sustainable development. So, diba yung natural resources natin, nagagamit natin siya para makatulong pa sa ibang tao na hindi natin kailangan i-harm yung environment. In fact, one of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals is to ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and clean energy for all. So I think yun nga yung sinasabing clean energy na to, ito yung paggamit ng natural resources, mga hydro, solar, or anything na pwede natin magamit to produce renewable energy na hindi natin kailangang i-abuse yung natural resources na environment or yung planet natin. So ang ganda rin yung, kasi may mga nababanggit din na yung mga grassroots initiatives ng ating mga guests na may kinalaman sa pagsulungan ng renewable energy at yung pagpapalaganap siyempre sa mga community na may limited o yung wala pang access sa kuryente. So, diba nabanggit mo nga, Marisol, na yun nga yung experience nyo na sa lampara, yun yung ginagamit nyo na source of ng kuryente, siguro lalo na paggabi. So, eto nga, so before po tayo matapos sa program to, syempre, meron pa po tayong isang guest. So, ang ating guest ay si Marlon Apanada. Ano nga ba yung Energy 2030, how is this coalition advocating for a responsive and inclusive clean energy transition for the Philippines? At paano ba namin o ng mga Pinoy o mga kapwa mo na gustong mag-produce ng renewable energy na masusuportahan ng ating mga viewers ang inyong mga initiatives or project? So, Marlon, nandiyan ka ba? So medyo busy po talaga ang ating mga guests. Kaya naman, didiretso na po muna tayo. Huwag po kayong mag-alala, babalikan po natin si Marlon. Didiretso po tayo sa ating isa pang activity ngayong webinar natin. So, dumako na tayo ngayon sa ating Climate TV Sim segment sa ating webcast. So last week, pinanood natin ang teaser ng Muli. Ibang Muli po ito hindi po ito yung kanta or yung pelikula, na isang original song composed and written by our fellow climate reality leader na si Angela Era. Today, we will play the full song. Muli is in celebration of the International Youth Day last August 12 and was part of the Race to a Better Reality campaign. The song is a call for everyone. Acting and leading on climate is not only a bid for survival, but a chance to build a world that is just, healthy, and sustainable for all. So let's now watch and listen to Muli. Please enjoy.
halakhak ng mga bata sa dapit hapon, kasabay ng huni ng ibong malaya. Tumayo, sumama ka sa aming paglalakbay, lumangoy sa hiwaga, iingatan ang ugnay, magtatanim ng munting awitin, sana ay mainit. Ikumpuni ang sirang bisikleta, pumadyak tumong bagong umaga, tayo nang sumulong sa nagbabagong panahon, makibahagi muli ang makapangyarihan, liwaga ng pusong bagay, makapangyarihan. Tumayo, sumama ka sa aming paglalakbay, lumangoy sa hiwaga, iingatan ang ugnay, magtatanim ng munting awitin, sana ay mainit. Ikumpuni ang sirang bisikleta, pumadyak tumong bagong umaga, tayo nang sumulong sa nagbabagong panahon, makibahagi muli ang pusong bagay, makapangyarihan, liwaga ng pusong bagay, makapangyarihan, liwaga ng pusong bagay, makapangyarihan, liwaga ng pusong bagay, makapangyarihan. Makibahagi muli, makibahagi muli.
That was so amazing! Wow! Iba talaga ang talento ng ating youth climate reality leaders. Napakaganda ng mensahe at sana talaga sa pamamagitan ng kantang ito, mas dumami pa ang mga kabataan o maging sinuman na makisama at makibahagi muli para makamit ang ninanais natin sa ating buhay at kinabukasan para sa lahat.
Yes, tama ka dyan, Marisol. Sobrang active talaga ang ating mga youth pagdating sa mga creativity at pagpupromote ng ating sustainable projects for Climate Reality Philippines. So maliban sa launch ng muli, may special climate activism segment natin ngayon, episode na ito, dahil makakasama natin ang ilan sa ating mga kapwa, mga youth climate reality leaders. Feeling youth kasi ako eh. We invited today Russell Morales and Riel Diala to share with us the creative process and inspiration behind their literary art pieces, which were featured in last month's Climate Activism social media feature. Alam niyo po kasi, we have a monthly hashtag Climate Activism feature in our social media pages to serve as a space for climate reality leaders to share their visual, literary, performance pieces, and other inspiring climate-related creations. So kahit ano po yan, video, photo, or anything creative ideas na meron kayo, pwede natin i-share yan. So the theme for the last month is Pinoy's at the forefront of climate disasters. Moreover, this feature aims to amplify the hashtag Tumindig movement initiated by Tarantadong Kalbo. So hopefully hindi po siya ma-blur dito sa ating webcast, which highlights the power of art and they sent to extract accountability from our leaders.
Yes, Marvz. Kaya naman, unahin na muna nating kausapin si Razel, who wrote the poem for last month's feature. Raz, can you please read the poem with us first and then share with us what you want to convey through
at bundok ng mga kapwang yamot na yamot, kami ang magiging sagot.
Wow, grabe. Naantig ako doon, Raz. Ang galing. No, thank you so much, Raz. Very powerful talaga. Very powerful.
Agree.
Yeah.
So should I share po yung inspiration behind the poem?
Yeah, please proceed.
Yeah. So currently I work in Masungi Geo Reserve. So it's so we have reforestation efforts here in the Upper Marikina watershed. And then during the time na nagpahingi ng artwork yung branch sa mga youth clusters specifically, yun yung parang kasagsagan na umuulan ulit yung habagat, tapos bumabaha ulit sa Marikina. So I was just thinking, I'm here, and then na-oversee yung importance ng bundok. Pero it also reminded me of, kung naka-watch kayo ng Goyo, ang Batang General, there was a part there na nakatayo si Goyo sa mga bundok. Nasa bundok siya. Tapos nakatingin lang siya sa kabundukan. Tapos may lumapit sa kanya na mas matandang general, if I remember right. Tapos yung sabi sa kanya, parang shinare na yung mga leaders daw, umaalis lang yan. They come and go. Pero itong mga bundok, ito yung environment natin, ito yung mga natural resources natin, nandyan yan. So I was just thinking na i-incorporate siya sa poem na to, na if we feel right now na helpless, if we feel like there's no hope, like tumingin lang tayo sa mga bundok na nandyan pa rin na parang ever since, di ba parang nung kinolonize tayo, gusto rin sila angkinin. Pero hanggang ngayon, patuloy pa rin sila na nagbibigay sa atin ng pagkain, and then they still serve as a natural defense against natural disasters. Tapos yung part na parang, so yun yung part na at walang sawang tatanggap ng bagong punla. I think yung bagong punla rin in terms of like leaders are the young generation, the new generation, because the young generation can be molded, can be guided to have the values that to take care of the environment at hindi yung values ng mga colonizer, which is usually gamit lang daang ng gamit, kuha lang ng kuha. So, tapos yun yung nilagay ko ng mga kapwang yamot na yamot kasi minsan sobrang inip natin sa paghihintay ng pagbabago. So, nakalagay lang sa, so nilagyan ko lang ng part na kami ang magiging sagot because I think that hope springs from action. If you feel helpless, I think na every time we do something, even the smallest of the smallest, you are empowered to do great things also. And I think I listened to like one of our speakers, si Sir Mark. Ako rin po kasi diagnosed with a mental challenge. So I feel so much. So there are times na I really feel helpless na parang ano ba to since 1500s pa tayo na ganito. So 1500s medyo paulit-ulit parang hindi tayo natututo sa history. Pero I was also thinking na just look up to the skies. Therefore, they're always there. Kung walang constant, parang kung wala tayong pangahawakan, let's just look up at the things that we're fighting for. So, yun lang. Thank you.
Wow. Salamat again, Ras. That was so great. Talagang tumindigan naman yung balhibo ko. Now, I know, Marvz, excited naman tayo and mas excited na rin yung next, no? Is real, no? Let's ask Real again and to present her literary work in the Real. Tell us please, what is the message behind your artwork?
Yes.
Isa pong magandang hapon sa ating lahat, hapon na paggabi. Isa pong paggabing araw sa ating lahat. So, ito po ang dalawang sinamit ko for the climate activism segment. Yung kaliwa po ay isang tumindig na version ni Ponky na ang tawag dito, ang mascot ni Climate Reality Youth Cluster na original na disenyo ni Youth Coordinator Keith Ancheta. So, ayun. So, binase ko siya doon sa work niya, yung tumindig na version. And self-explanatory, tumindig kasi tumitindig tayo laban sa mga oppressive na mga forces sa nakakasira sa Pilipinas ngayon at sa ating nakadagdag sa ating mga issues. Ngayon, yung kaliwa naman, ay yung nasa kanan naman, sorry, I'm going to explain a bit more in depth about this one. So ito ang naka-base dun sa theme na Pinoy at the forefront of climate disaster. So this artwork na ang title ay The Fight for Climate Justice in the Philippines ay isang digital na artwork na ginawa ko sa Photoshop at saka sa AutoCAD. Pero yung outline ng Philippines, drawing ko siya manually sa pen, tas kinan ko na lang. So yung main focal point ng artwork ko doon is yung flag na yung map ng Pilipinas, which I rendered with the country's different natural wonders, different landforms, water forms, among others. So like for example, sa taas makita nyo Sierra Madre, kailan nyo siyang titigan. Sierra Madre, Taal Volcano, Taal Lake, Mayon Volcano, the Puerto Princesa Underground River, Mount Majaas, Mount Hamigitan, Mount Apo, Kawasan Falls, among others. And kaya ko siya nilagay doon kasi these are the environments na kung saan nagsatribe ang ating napaka-diverse na flora at fauna. And also ito yung mga environments kung saan nagsatribe ang mga Pilipino or yung mga predecessor ng mga Pilipino long before kinolonize ng archipelago ng mga Spaniards. So it's also important to recognize na itong mga bodies of land na mga bodies of water ditong mga landforms na to have also served as protections for the communities that live in the Philippines against natural forces and calamities such as typhoons. Diba? Like for example, the Sierra Madre mountain range has long been a barrier for us against the typhoons that come from the east. Now, if you notice then, if you look closely, naglagay din ako ng maliit na drawing ng city, ng metropolitan area dun sa may NCR kasi I wanted to emphasize na the fight for climate justice and the risk of the climate crisis does not end at the natural environment and the rural areas. Kahit nasa metropolitan area tayo ay damay-damay pa rin tayo lahat. And we have to recognize na the fight against the climate crisis must not stop sa rural areas. Rather, we also have to fight sa metropolitan area, especially for sustainable development. And sa background naman, you'd notice na may mga patterns doon. Those are actually textile patterns created by different ethno-linguistic groups and indigenous peoples in the country. Like for example, diyan makita nyo ang hablon ng mga Hiligaynon, ang inabel ng mga Ilocano, ang tinalak ng mga Tiboli, and ang handicrafts ng mga Yakan. So, naglagay ako dyan kasi these people, the indigenous peoples and these ethno-linguistic groups, these ethnic people, have long since served as stewards of the environment, stewards of nature long before our colonizers came. And at the same time, it's during these current times na itong mga taong to, these people who are trying to protect the environment are being abused by large corporations, by conglomerates, by institutions who are profit-minded rather to overexploit our natural resources for their own benefit, their own gain. And that's why naglagay ako ng mga different statements, different hashtags around the map kasi makakakonect yan lahat eh. The climate crisis and environmental conservation, human rights, and climate justice. Now, I think through these artworks, I try to emphasize how it's really important na kailangan natin tumindig to fight for climate justice. Kasi when we talk about the climate justice, when we talk about the climate crisis, we're not just talking about this one sector over here, ganon. Napakalawak na sakop ang ng climate crisis ang madadamay. And we're not just talking about environmental conservation. We're talking about environmental conservation, heritage conservation, human and animal rights, social justice, the rights of indigenous peoples, the rights of ethno-linguistic groups, and the marginalized as well. That's to name a few among others. And according to the recent report by the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or the IPCC, we have to work urgently regarding the matter kasi if we don't move fast, tawag dito, catastrophic and disastrous results are bound to happen. And it's important na kailangan natin tumindig kasi we have to fight for our advocacies, fight for what is right in the face of those who think otherwise. And in this fight, and we also try to educate others. We don't just try to implement these advocacies in our everyday lives and in our respective professions and a field of specialties, but we also try to educate and inspire others, as our speakers earlier have shown. And also, like for example, itong Klimatotohanan, which also aims to educate the public, and also those who the elite who, or the privileged who hopefully also has the power to help change the situation for the better. And kung tutuusin, realistically speaking, we're not going to get 100% na support. There's always going to be this minority who will have opposing views for some reasons, but let that be motivation as well that we continue to fight. Na patuloy tayong tumindig para sa climate justice. Thank you.
Yes, so maraming salamat, Ras at Riels, para sa inyong lively, interesting at relevant na climate activism segment or project. So sabi nga sa caption ng branch sa post nila, kailangan talaga natin tumindig at makiisa para sa isang mas matatag na Pilipinas kung saan ang ating kalikasan ay tunay na pinapangalagaan, ang ating pamayanan ay napapatakbo gamit ang renewable na enerhiya, at ang bawat Pilipino ay may kapasidad umaksyon at malayang isulong ang laban sa krisis sa klima. So before tayo mag-proceed sa ating last part ng ating webcast ngayon, ay babalikan natin si Sir Marlon Apanada. So Sir Marlon, nandiyan na po ba kayo?
Hello, good evening everyone.
Ayun, good evening Marlon. So Marlon, ito yung mga question ko sa iyo. Ano nga ba ang Our Energy 2030? And how is this coalition advocating for a responsive and inclusive clean energy transition for the Philippines? At paano ba masusuportahan ng ating mga viewers ang inyong mga initiatives or projects? So Marlon?
All right, thank you Marvin. And before I answer those questions, I'd like to play a video that will hopefully shed light on a few of your questions. Please play.
Successful in ensuring a responsive and inclusive energy transition within this decade, what's in store for us Filipinos? Number 1, addressing economic slowdown. A green recovery plan could provide a much-needed boost to quell fears of a U-shaped recovery, in which economic damage lasts for up to 2 years before reaching levels of growth again. Number 2, creating jobs. A May 2020 report by McKinsey showed that government spending on renewables and energy efficiency creates 3 times more jobs than spending on fossil fuels. Number 3, reducing health risks. We can reduce health risks with more clean energy, as higher consumption of fossil fuel energy sources increases air pollution and threatens human health. Number 4, reducing electricity costs. Cheaper electricity results in savings for households and better profit margins for businesses. Number 5. Achieving electricity access for all people. Systems that do not require expensive and challenging transmission networks in rugged and remote terrain would further the goal of total electrification. For example, since 2018, a 4-megawatt solar battery microgrid in Occidental Mindoro has brought 24/7 power to a remote community without relying on government subsidies and at a lower cost to consumers. Number 6. Curbing climate change. Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas Governor Benjamin Diokno has repeatedly acknowledged that climate change and environmental challenges can pose risks to the stability of the financial system. The low-carbon energy transition will help thwart man-made climate change and reduce the carbon intensity of the Philippines' power sector. And finally, number 7, improving energy system reliance. Distributed renewable energy, or DRE systems, that are not dependent on fuel that needs to be transported to its use location are better suited to the Philippines. This configuration reduces the need for extra long transmission lines that can be exposed to intense storms. They are also better positioned to benefit from battery energy storage systems, which have dropped in price by more than 50% over the past 2 years. 7 benefits. Number 1, addressing economic slowdown. Number 2, creating jobs. Number 3, reducing health risks. Number 4, reducing electricity costs. Number 5, achieving electricity access for all people. Number 6, curbing climate change. And number 7, improving energy system reliance. A responsive and inclusive energy transition can secure a prosperous and progressive future for all. But we need you to amplify these demands. Follow our Facebook page to stay updated and visit www.ourenergy2030.org.
Thank you for that opening video. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marlon Joseph Apanada, Southeast Asia Engagement Lead for Climate and Energy of the global think tank World Resources Institute, the first Filipino and the youngest ever global co-chair of the Low Emissions Development Strategies Global Partnership Finance Working Group, and convener of our Energy 2030, for which I am representing today. I am humbled to be invited to speak in today's event. Next slide, please. Our Energy 2030 is a youth-led intergenerational alliance building platform to define 2020 to 2030 as the decisive decade of action, not just ambition, action. It is housed under the Manila Observatory Energy Collaboratory with the Ateneo Global Climate Corps acting as its youth secretariat. And among its core coalition partners include the international NGO leading sustainability in the healthcare sector, Healthcare Without Harm, the international NGO leading sustainability among local governments, ICLE, and the global startup incubator, New Energy Nexus. Next slide, please. The coalition has since grown to more than 30 organizations, with the newest members being from the student sectors, making the coalition a youth-driven, language-diverse, and geographically distributed one that is well-positioned for grassroots engagement. Our focus engagement have gained us, to date, more than 25,000 followers in our Facebook page, reached more than 1.2 million social media users, and have our explainer and talkie videos gather more than 500,000 views and counting. On July 29 and August 8, we convened a two-part super event called Vision 2030, Powering and Empowering Filipinos Towards a #Brighter Future Today, which saw 2,000 registrants, more than 700 live participants, and the first ever platform where we heard from Vice President Leni Robredo, Senator Manny Pacquiao, and Senator Sherwin Gatchalian sharing their vision towards a decisive, coherent, and complete energy transformation and climate action in the Philippines. When it comes to a vision of a decisive, coherent, and complete energy transformation and climate action by youth, for youth, and of youth, our Energy 2030 is truly uniquely positioned for scale and impact, and continues to work with ecosystem partners driven by our North Star of avoiding 1.5 degrees warming. And how are we doing that? The Our Energy 2030 coalition looks at the next 10 years as a blank canvas and a sandbox for things that can be done and should be done to kickstart the Philippines' journey of justly and effectively transitioning to a decarbonized, decentralized, and digitalized energy future. We now have the opportunity to take back ownership and redefine the narrative on what it means to have a truly responsive, truly inclusive, decisive, complete, and coherent transformation of the energy system and climate action in the Philippines. For Filipinos, by Filipinos, of Filipinos. And what is energy transformation and climate action in the Philippines? Number one, merong kuryente, energy supply security. 2 million Filipinos are still left behind and do not have access to electricity. We heard it from the previous speaker that there are still Filipino households that do not have light at night, and with millions more having to experience frequent rotating blackouts. Murang kuryente, cheaper electricity, and not what we have, which has the second highest electricity rates in the entirety of Asia, second only to Japan. An expense that eats significantly into our household incomes. May trabaho, creation of jobs, especially in 2021, where last year we lost a record 4.5 million jobs and 8 million more Filipinos took pay cuts. And that is just official statistics. Hindi pa kasama dyan yung mga hindi nabibilang. Next, magandang trabaho. Jobs that provide dignity, that can feed families, that are green and planet-friendly, that positions the Filipino for global domination. And of course, these post-COVID non-negotiables. Malinis na hangin at malinis na kapaligiran, cleaner air and a cleaner environment, at malusog na planeta. A healthy planet that avoids the worst impacts of climate change. And since we are in the energy conversation today, energy sector alone contributes more than 46% of our carbon emissions. Next slide, please. First, let me give you a brief background as to why now, more than ever, we need a decisive, coherent, and complete energy transformation. As you are well aware, our economy contracted by a staggering negative 9.6% as economic activities were temporarily on a standstill, and we spent over 2.7 trillion pesos, equivalent to over 15% of our GDP, to tackle the COVID pandemic and keep the economy afloat. The lockdowns and movement restrictions caused thousands of businesses and establishments to downsize or even close, reaching record high unemployment of 7.2 million people last year. We all know someone who is part of these statistics. Those of us fortunate enough to keep our jobs have had to adjust to working at home. Similarly, 28 million students had to immediately adjust to online learning. But how do we expect to adapt to the new normal way of working or learning if we still experience frequent power outages, especially for those of us in the provinces? Our energy reserves are quite limited. Any unplanned outage of a power plant will cause disruption to the grid. And with limited power supply comes an increase in electricity cost. Next slide, please. What do Filipinos want? Merong kuryente. It seems like every summer season, we can expect an announcement for rotating blackouts. Just 2 months ago, the Luzon grid was placed on yellow alert. This is emblematic of the country's continuing energy crisis, as a substantial amount of our inflexible coal power plants have been in unplanned outages. And as in the case from May to June, thinning of our supply reserves enough to cause a substantial spike in prices in the electricity spot market, reaching as high as 37 pesos per kilowatt hour and a monthly average of 8.31 pesos per kilowatt hour, more than twice its normal price, a price increase which is sadly passed on to the Filipino families. We need reliable electricity, not just for convenience anymore, but for our children's quality education, working from home, and most especially now for our vaccination efforts. As you may recall, last May, 348 vials of the life-saving vaccines were spoiled in North Cotabato due to a power mishap. 2022 will mark the first ever local and national election after the pandemic. And if we want it to be automated while maintaining its integrity, reliable electricity is a must. You can see in this table that only renewable energy can be installed fast enough to augment and ensure sufficient energy by next year. Next slide, please. What else do the Filipinos want? Murang kuryente. You might have noticed I purposely didn't mention diesel as the possible solution. This is because diesel power plants, if unsubsidized, cost 9.7 to 65.8 pesos per kilowatt hour, which is much higher than the rates of which solar power can be sold, which we've seen can go as low as 2.20 pesos per kilowatt hour in our neighbor, Malaysia. We are paying for the subsidy to these expensive off-grid diesel plants to the tune of 13 billion pesos per year. Our over-reliance on fossil fuel plants is also one of the root causes of the country's high electricity rates, as fossil fuel power plants pass on the volatile cost of fossil fuels to the consumers. As you can see in the graph, coal prices have doubled since this time last year. It is not enough that we have electricity. We deserve clean and affordable electricity. Dapat may kuryente at mura ang kuryente. Next slide, please. What else do the Filipinos want? May trabaho, magandang trabaho. Ushering in the green economy through a clean energy transformation in the Philippines helps to combat the rising unemployment rate in the country. On average, a small to medium business would have to pay twice as much for power compared to our ASEAN neighbors. This is one of the roadblocks that discourages investors and businesses to set up shop in the country. Additionally, as the report by McKinsey in May 2020 showed, government spending on energy and energy efficiency creates 3 times more jobs than spending on fossil fuels, creating employment opportunities up and down the supply chain. May trabaho at magandang trabaho simply means that it is not just about lowering the Philippines' unemployment numbers, but providing quality jobs as well as jobs that leave a better and lasting impact on our economy and environment for the future generation. Next slide, please. What else do the Filipinos want? Malinis na hangin at malusog na planeta. The World Health Organization found that air pollution causes 4.6 million premature deaths yearly. And we could only speculate on how the numbers have just drastically changed now that we are in the midst of a global pandemic. A Harvard study has also shown that air pollution raises the chances of death from COVID-19 infection, cementing that the use of fossil fuels brings long-term harm, further amplified by the COVID-19 pandemic. The use of fossil fuels is one of the biggest contributing factors in causing air pollution, contributing 46% of the country's greenhouse gas emissions. We are now at 1.2 degrees global temperature rise. And once we hit 1.5 degrees, there is no turning back. It is non-negotiable then that we should choose to have cleaner air and cleaner seas and lands. And what better way to achieve this than to ensure the country's energy transformation? Next slide, please. To recap, we have among the highest electricity rates in Asia. 2 million Filipinos are still left behind and do not have access to electricity. We have stagnant growth in energy investments compared to our ASEAN neighbors, and more than 46% of our carbon emissions come from the energy sector. All these, despite all our policies and laws already in place. All these, despite the 30,000 plus climate reality leaders, Clearly, there are systemic root causes that need to be addressed. Next slide, please. How can we ensure then that the calls for cheaper electricity, more green jobs, and investments and cleaner air are met? I would like to bring into the table 4 major solutions. Number 1, removal of automatic fuel cost pass-throughs that artificially make fossil projects look bankable and attractive, and that unduly disadvantage consumers with high electricity rates. If you didn't know fossil fuel power plants are allowed to pass through, then I enjoin you to talk to your climate reality leader peers to talk more about automatic fuel pass-throughs. Number 2, provide the power of consumer choice. Provide businesses and households the power to choose where to source their energy and move the market through the Green Energy Option Program, which fortunately, after 13 long years, has just been fully implemented this week. So thanks to the efforts of our Energy 2030 and Clean Energy Investment Accelerator, we have the GEOP now. There are 3 and 4 more you can see on the screen, but these are just the 4 starting solutions that we can propose in order to provide the country with a decisive, coherent, and complete energy transformation. Merong kuryente, murang kuryente, may trabaho, magandang trabaho, malinis na hangin at malusog na planeta. Next slide, please. So we're here now. We in our Energy 2030 are assembling this change.org petition for a decisive and coherent and complete energy transformation and climate action in the Philippines, for which we are enjoining all climate reality leaders to join. But we are more excited on the next slide. And this is, I think, my final slide. We, in our Energy 2030, are assembling a coalition of 3 million Filipino youth voters and climate ambassadors around the world to hashtag vote for climate ahead of the May 2022 national elections, the first national elections since the pandemic. We invite you to sign our change.org petition calling for a decisive, coherent, and complete energy transformation in the Philippines. And for those who can vote and those who haven't registered to vote yet, enjoin you to hashtag 3 million, add your voices to hashtag 3 million votes for climate by signing up at www.3millionvotesforclimate.org. For the first time in our lives, having privilege is a responsibility, and having responsibility is a privilege. We enjoin you to join our call for merong kuryente, murang kuryente, may trabaho, magandang trabaho, malinis na hangin at malinis na kapaligiran at malusog na planeta as we decide on the country's next set of leaders. Again, I would like to thank Climate Reality Philippines for this opportunity to talk to our country's climate ambassadors, and looking forward to working with you, talking with you, and adding your voices as we mobilize 3 million votes for climate. Thank you and good day.
All right, thank you, Marlon, for sharing that with us. What I really like about your initiatives is that you are also harnessing the passion and creativity of the youth to push for a just transition to a decarbonized, digitalized, and decentralized system. Kami sa Climate Reality shares the strategy and that vision too. We are also working to empower the youth to be the voice for the country's clean energy transition and other climate initiatives. We hope our organizations can work together in the future. At bago natin hingan ng closing messages ang ating resource speakers for today, pakinggan muna natin ang mensahe ni Ms. Pilar Aramayo-Prudencio, ang Country Director ng British Council Philippines. Ms. Pilar? Narito pa si Ms. Pilar? Marvz?
Sorry, I think I was on mute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right then. So magandang hapon sa inyong lahat. Ako si Pilar Aramayo at ako ang direktor ng British Council sa Pilipinas. Okay, I'm afraid that's unfortunately the extent of my Filipino, so with your permission, I will now switch to English. So I'd like to tell you first a little bit about the British Council, about my organization. As some of you may know, the British Council is the UK's international organization for cultural relations and educational opportunities. Our work builds connections, understanding and trust between people in the UK and other countries, and we do that through arts and culture, education, and the English language. We work fundamentally in 2 ways: directly with individuals to transform their lives, and with governments and partners to make a bigger difference for the longer term, creating benefit for millions of people all over the world. We help young people to gain the skills, the confidence, and the connections that they're looking for to realize their potential and to participate in strong and inclusive communities. We support them to learn English, to get a high-quality education, and to gain internationally recognized qualifications. Our work in the arts and in culture stimulates creative expression and exchange and nurtures creative enterprise. In short, through our work, we connect the best of the UK with the world and the best of the world with the UK. And these connections lead to an understanding of each other's strengths and of the challenges and values that we share. Earlier this year, we invited young people around the world to share their climate innovation ideas with us through Destination Zero. It was a call for young people who want to tackle climate change and make a positive difference in the world. We wanted ideas that would help communities move closer to zero carbon emissions or adapt to the effects of climate change. And over 230 people from 43 countries around the world entered the challenge. And the British Council Philippines was extremely proud and excited that Jovie, with his Light of Hope project, which he earlier presented, was among the 10 finalists who received a grant and mentorship to support them to prototype their ideas or to take them to the next level. So I'd like to congratulate Jovie again and everyone here who continues to find innovative solutions for renewable energy technologies. Now this year, the 26th UN Climate Change Conference of the Parties, or COP26, will be hosted in the UK in Glasgow this October. And in the lead up to COP26, we have launched a global initiative called the Climate Connection, which aims at uniting people around the world to meet the climate challenge. What we want is to inspire, to support, and to foster dialogue between young people to share ideas and develop solutions to address this global emergence. And for that purpose, we have a series of activities, resources, and campaigns. Destination Zero, which I spoke about before, is one of these efforts. And it's important to say, and I was really happy to hear the tone of the discussion and of the projects earlier, which sounded to me really positive and optimistic. At the British Council, we also want to maintain a positive and optimistic mindset. And we want to support people to feel empowered and committed to act, rather than powerless, defeated, or overwhelmed by just the size of the issue. This coming 9th of September, we will also launch a global youth letter. And this is a plan of action directly addressing policymakers and leaders about young people's aspirations and recommendations around climate change. So based on crowdsourced data from 8,000 young people in 23 countries, the Philippines included, there is a strong unanimous voice emerging on climate change. And through events with our partners, the UK Embassy in Italy, Youngo, the UN's official children and youth constituency to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and many others, we have the opportunity for recommendations to be debated at the UN's 16th Conference on Youth, scheduled in October, and at the official COP26 in Glasgow. So the Global Youth Letter has enabled us to create a platform for young people's voices to engage young people in debate and dialogue with policymakers, both internationally and nationally, and to amplify their voices and the voices of all the young people we're engaging around the world. And we want to raise the number of voices from the 8,000 that participated in the initial survey to 80,000. So we encourage everyone, and especially the Filipino youth, people aged 18 to 35 years old, to register and to take part in the launch. And for that purpose, I do invite you to Follow us through our different social media channels. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, or to visit our website. That's britishcouncil.org.ph. So we have other activities for individuals, for young people, for organizations, for teachers, for anybody really that wants to make a difference on climate change, or wants to learn more about our other areas of work and cultural engagement. We hope you or members of your networks can participate in our initiatives in the same way as Jovie did. You can check out our British Council in the Philippines website, which I mentioned before. Again, a reminder to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to see our campaigns, our collaboration work, and other opportunities that we offer. I really want to thank the Climate Reality Project for inviting me this evening. Thank you, Marvz. Thank you, Marisol. And I want to congratulate you for providing this wonderful space, this Klimatotohanan, for Filipinos to learn, share, and connect around solutions to climate change. Thank you very much. Maraming salamat.
Yes. Di po naka-on yung video ko. So yes, thank you, Miss Pilar, for that wonderful message. I actually would like to share also mine, but it will take time. So thank you very much. So now let's have all our resource speakers back again. So bago tayo magtapos, hingan muna natin ng kaunting short closing message in 1 to 2 sentences. Actually, yung gusto sana namin itanong lights off or lights on. Joke lang po. So, eto, kidding aside, so sisimulan natin ang tanong kay Janice of First Gen. So, next si Mark of Solar Hope, si Jovie of Light of Hope PH, and last but not the least, si Marlon of our Energy 2030. So, Janice, so in 1 to 2 sentences, ano yung masishare mo sa ating mga viewers at tagapakinig?
First of all, thank you for allowing us to share our story in First Gen. I just like to say that in whatever sector you are or in whatever capacity you can, nothing is too small. So nakita natin dun sa mga ibang nag-share, no? So sana in however way you can, if you can create change and help people, please do and help and support these initiatives. That's all. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Janice. So next naman si Mark.
Yeah, tuloy lang ang laban, no? Hindi tayo matitigil ng pandemic, tuloy ang misyon, tuloy-tuloy ang laban para sa just energy transition. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And Jovie?
Hi, Marv. So for me, yes, continue lang. Let's not let the pandemic hinder our advocacy. Keep on sharing the light and be a light hero.
Thank you very much. So, medyo nawala po ulit si Sir Marlon. Ganun po kabilis talaga ang mga pangyayari. So, Marisol, ano ba masasabi mo? Ay, nakamute ka?
Okay, so those were very inspiring messages. Kahit brief, but magaganda yung mga messages sa ating mga guests, no? So once again, thank you to our resource speakers, our youth climate reality leaders, our partner organizations, and to all of you who tuned in to the show. I'm sure na marami tayong natutunan sa episode at mas naging aware sa kung paano ba tayo makakatulong sa pag-provide ng clean energy para sa ating mga kababayan na hanggang ngayon ay walang access sa kuryente. O kung meron man, ay hindi malinis at napapalala ang ating krisis sa klima. Sana hindi dito nagtatapos ang ating advokasya para sa renewable energy transition ng ating mga komunidad at ng buong Pilipinas.
Yes, sobrang agree, Marisol. So we from Climate Reality Philippines, we really hope na we have made this an insightful, interesting, and thought-provoking discussion for all of you. So ako ang short message ko lang, it brings light on the importance of renewable energy. So before we end this webcast, we would like to remind everyone to accomplish the feedback form provided in the comment section. If you want to receive certificates for this show, please also visit the Instagram page of the Climate Reality Project Philippines and our Twitter account with the same name. So you may also visit and follow the socials of our guest organization. Their handles are flashed on the screen. This has been Klimatotohanan, a fortnightly webcast organized and led by our climate reality leaders to tackle urgent climate issues of today and tomorrow. Why Klimatotohanan? Because we need real talk and real action on the climate crisis. Thank you once again for tuning in, and see you again in our next episode. Stay safe and healthy, everyone. Good night.